Doomsday Countdown. This is a solitaire and cooperative game in which 1 to 3 players will control space marines that will go down a net of tunnels, will destroy monsters right and left, but ultimately you're trying to deactivate a Doomsday device and you're trying to get the heck out of there before it is too late. This is a game set in the world of Warhammer, and it is one of their boxed games, meaning it is a self-sufficient game. You play it out of the box. You don't have to invest all the time and money that it would take to play the main game of Warhammer, which suits me perfectly. I'm very happy that they have this line of games because I like the idea of blasting monsters using people in ridiculously large armors, but at the same time, I'm not interested in the hobby aspect. I'm not interested in building armies of miniatures, painting armies of miniatures, joining a little bit of a cult, by which I mean a vibrant community of passionate fans. So I just want a game that I take out of the box and I play. And games in this line, including this one, do just that. In this game, you have these miniatures. As you know, me, I don't paint my miniatures. I don't even assemble them particularly well. I don't even cut out those little white dots that are left after you pull the plastic pieces from the frame. But so this is what these miniatures will look like. Again, yours will look a lot better than mine, but it's to give you a sense. You know the level of detail that you can expect from miniatures in this family. So, we have our three heroes here, or 3 marines, each with a number of 1 points. So when that goes down to 0, that marine is eliminated. We have attack values. When you attack an enemy, simply you roll a die, and if you roll equal to or higher than your attack value, after possible modifiers, you score a hit, and usually you slay an enemy. There is one of them that takes 2 hits to slay. Also, if you roll a 1, that is an automatic failure. If you roll a 6, that's an automatic success. Good for you. Our enemies also have cards. There's 3 of them. 3 of these have special abilities or traits, or sorta. This one simply has a better attack value but no other ability. This one can attack multiple marines in the same space, and this is the one that takes 2 hits to destroy. And they also have an attack value. When they attack you, is the same thing. They roll a die equal to or higher than their attack value. They score a hit against you. Those are the special ones, and then you have the initiate, which is pretty much anybody who is not those 3 on the board is represented by this card, and that means they don't have any special ability, and they hit on 5 or more. You also have a deck of cards that represent special abilities, special actions. As you can see, they are one-time thing. You need to discard them after you use them, and they give you a lot of good stuff, such as extra attacks, extra moves, different things that happen. But they deplete fast, of course, as the game progresses, and you have a number of them that are assigned to your characters at the beginning of the game. The confrontation takes place in this randomly generated play area. You always have a starting area there with 3 tiles that always go there at the beginning of the game, and then you shuffle the remaining tiles in a specific way so the deck is somewhat balanced. And then going around clockwise, you look for open walkways and you keep adding until all the open walkway would be one that doesn't have tiles adjacent to it in all directions. And then you simply keep adding to open walkways until all tiles have been placed. And some tiles have tunnels. That is where these people spawn from. If all the tunnels have monsters, they'll spawn from open walkways. We have the Doomsday device, which we're trying to deactivate using the deactivation codes that are placed on the control panel at the beginning of the game. Other special tiles, the trap here, you have to roll a die, you may get wounded, and then we have the pitfall. It takes basically 2 movement actions to get out of there. The elevator, Very important. This is where we want to end the game. This is also where you place the timer, the 20-sided timer. Only let me pick that knit. This is not a 20-sided countdown timer. It's a 20-sided die. If it was a timer, then all the numbers would be sequential here, so that when I'm playing one turn, I don't have from 20, I need to record that I'm in 19. I don't have to go around and look for 19, so I can start the next turn. A countdown will have them next to each other, not scrambled all around. Little nitpick, but I told you I was going to pick that knit. Now, when it is your turn, well, each turn is divided into 4 phases. The first one is your Marines activate. You cannot have more than 2 in the same tile after the beginning of the game. Only during setup they can be on the same spot. When a Marine activates, they have 3 actions. For an action, you can move 1 hex. So, for example, I can move like this with this one, and then I take another move with the same person. Why? Because this is the guy that once per turn, when moving a move action, can move into a tile that contains a Chaos Cultist and can slay that Cultist. And so that one goes now. That was easy. And that's also a demonstration of how you can kind of manipulate things during setup and later when it comes to placement of units. Of course, I place that one there because I look at the map and I want to remove that one early on. But just an example. So for one action, you can move. By 1 hex. For an action, you can attack, which is you can fire at an enemy in line of sight. For your attack, roll a die equal to or higher than that. Usually, you remove an enemy, unless, again, it is the one that takes 2 hits to eliminate. Other possible actions, if you are on the control panel tile, then you can perform the action of picking up the deactivation codes. They'll go on the card of your character just to record who has that. And as your character, if your character moves in an area containing another friendly character, then you can transfer that to them. Pretty simple. Also, if you are all the way there in the deactivation space, I mean the Doomsday device space, and you have the deactivation codes, then you put them there and then you deactivate the Doomsday device. What else can you do? If you are in an area containing a tunnel and there are no cultists there, no enemies there, then you can spend an action to seal that tunnel. So check again, in my first turn I could have done 1, 2, 1, 2, that's eliminated for free, seal that hatch. And those are really your main actions. Again, several extra actions may come from these cards to give you extra things, including extra actions, and those are very important. Ultimately, what we want to do is, again, bring the deactivation codes from the control room to the Doomsday device, seal all of these things, and then move all of the surviving Marines in the elevator space. If we do that before everybody's killed or before it's too late, you win the game. And at that point, you assess victory based on the number of surviving Marines. After you take your actions, however, then they get a chance of doing something. You will simply draw a card from this deck and resolve the kind of action that the card describes. And it's very basic. Move and attack and move. Sometimes you have some extra fun stuff. Feel free to pause and do that and read the text. After and also here you have a little bit of possibilities of manipulating things when you make decisions. Then after they activate, they reinforce. The phrasing in the rules about reinforcement is particularly it took me a while to figure out what that meant, but ultimately, if I understand correctly, it means that all of the enemies that have been removed from the board come back on the board. And first they come back on open tunnels. When every tunnel has a tunnel, then they come back in open walkways, but you choose the starting open walkway in which you place them, and then you place the remaining ones clockwise in other open walkways. Again, once you remove a bunch of them, considerable flexibility here in starting to place them far from where you want them to be. And so you manipulate the presence of the enemies on the board a little bit. But again, the idea is that all the enemies that have been removed that are not on the board will return to the board during the reinforce phase at the beginning, at the end of each turn. Which also means keep them on the board for as long as they don't bother you, because they come back anyways. And finally, you remove a turn, you look for the next turn, and you go down to the next turn, which I'm totally gonna find is not annoying at all. There you go. That's the idea. Activate your soldiers, 3 actions each, plus extra actions coming from unique abilities and characters' abilities and cards. Move, destroy stuff. Try to complete your objectives. The enemies activate, the enemies reinforce. Look for the next turn side and continue like this until you either win or lose the game. You also have options of making the game harder, of linking together several scenarios into a campaign, but still, this is the general idea. Doomsday Countdown is just a little too simple, too straightforward, and too bland, I believe, for my taste. I guess I already jumped at the conclusions of the conclusions, but there's nothing fatally wrong in this game. It just doesn't have a whole lot to hold up my interest. If you remember the distant past, the year 2010, 11, 12, when we had those D&D board games, Wrath of Ashardalon, Castle Ravenloft, The Legend of Drizzt, and so on and so forth. And some people accuse those games of being like, well, I guess if you like just moving a couple of spaces, roll a dice if you kill a monster. And I gave those games more positive reviews than other people did, because I thought there was a lot more. Doomsday Countdown reminded me a little bit of what people accuse those games to be. Here, yes, I did feel that I was just moving a couple of spaces, rolling a dice, removing a couple of miniatures that will be put back, rinse and repeat. Which, of course, at the core, so many games are like that, but the point is, how do you do it in a way that is compelling, that is exciting, that gives me a lot of interesting decisions and dilemmas? It almost feels like somebody wanted to follow that formula, move around, roll a die, kill some monsters, but they forgot that that is just the basic script. That is not the final outcome. That's the draft. That's what you start from. That's where you then need to add a lot of flavor. And to me, that is just missing. Of the other games in this Space Marine adventure system or family, of these Warhammer games that come in a box, they don't require you to join a religion or a cult or change your lifestyle. Of these games, this one reminded me of another one, Crypt Hunters, that had, however, a different mechanic when it came to the terrain, because if you were further enough from certain areas of the board, those terrain tiles were removed, and there were monsters on them they removed too. I guess they had like really short attention spans, and so they didn't follow you anymore. And so you could game the system quite a bit, but there was a little bit of creativity in the way you could do that. Here you can definitely game the board, but a lot more, because the board is fixed from the beginning. There is no surprises, there is no absolutely unpredictable element there. You can make a plan, and I almost feel like you could script quite well, quite reliably from the very beginning how you're going to play. Because you know exactly where the places where the monsters will appear will be. And so you're going to send somebody down a tunnel, and you're going to prioritize so that your heroes are always as further as possible from where you know you will be placing the enemies next time. There are just so many things that you can game about that, about who is eliminated and where you're gonna send them back. That I think this game just falls on the puzzle side a little too much. I'm okay if you have a game that's a little bit of a puzzle with a combat theme, but it just felt that this game to me didn't feel at all like that anything really to do with action, with adventure, with monsters, with space marines, with big weapons. Again, at the core, you can tell everything is about move two spaces, roll a die, look at the number, blah blah. But if I'm involved with the theme or excited about the theme, then I block that out. I don't really forget it, but I see the stories and the event through the mechanics. Here, the mechanics keep staring at me in the face and keep telling me it's two hexes and it's two cards, it's armor three, etc., etc., etc. I never lose sight of those. I never get really excited about the story. It feels too much like a cold puzzle. The way the map is set up at the beginning is also just so much about going back and forth to the same tunnels, and somehow backtracking is just less exciting than, well, tracking, I guess, just exploring, going out there, figuring things out. From the beginning, it feels like a pickup and delivery service on this very rigid map. And because again the rigidity of the map, there is no magic, there is no mystery about the environment. You can game the puzzle of where everybody's gonna respawn so easily. Since they're gonna come back, also you have an interest in just keeping them on the board for as long as possible, which also again makes it so gamey. I'm on one side of the base or whatever this weird environment is, and I know exactly that there is no way for these monsters to ever bother me because I decide to respawn them there, and so I can just waltz through the board and complete my pickup and delivery mission. It just feels cold, it just feels bland. Honestly, I think there may be a place, but not among, I'd say, adult gamers. Even if you're a casual gamer, I think fairly early on, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out a script, you'll figure out an algorithm or heuristics that say, okay, I know how to do this. They respawn far from me, I do this, I kill these other ones, I respawn them where I'm not going to be, and so on and so forth. Even an adult gamer, even when looking for a casual game, I think this one just doesn't have enough to offer. If I was, of course, to introduce this game to my daughter and to her friends that are all 8, 9, or 10, I think they may have a blast with this one because, well, they are excited about it. I rolled a 4 and I destroyed that monster. For them, that would be just enough, I believe. But other than this, about as a game for really young players, there are just so many better options with a similar theme, with a similar topic, with a similar idea. Like it's a furious, violent combat that does feel like combat, that does feel like action, that has an element of mystery and exploration. So Doomsday Countdown. The problem is to me is that not very exciting because it's just a game that feels a little too bland, a little too cold, a little too calculating, and it just doesn't have a whole lot to keep me interested.